It is Thursday, the 24th of November 2016. I am Robin Yellow, and this is Techtasm episode 37, Crazy Smog Sucker. And with me again, because nobody else was available, is the gorgeous James Woodall.
Pretty gorgeous, thank you very much. It's been a long time.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Things have been kind of crazy the last couple of weeks.
Pretty crazy, but glad to be back.
Yes, and I'm glad to have you back. And this week, James, we're going to take a look at China's smog cleaning tower, your phone disabling your social when you take to the wheel, and boom, it's Concorde 2. And we'll be judging these stories and a couple of others to see if they are a Techtasm, which is a blend of tech for technology and tasm for phantasm, something existing only in a person's mind. So without further nitpicking, let's get on with the show.
So on to the first story. Lacey Cook in Habitat has written about the smog-sucking vacuum cleaner. I'm not making that up. What this wonderful Dutch chap has invented, it's from Studio Roosgaard, effectively a cleaning tower that can remove pollution from the air. And this thing has been on for a few days now, 41, and it has busily scrubbed, wait for it, 30 million cubic meters of air, which means nothing to me. So to put that
How
in
much
real terms,
air is there in the world, James?
Well, 30 million cubic meters, I've got no idea, but 30 million cubic meters of air is the equal volume of 10 Beijing national stadiums. So it's pretty big. I mean, it's not, we're talking minuscule percent of the world's air, but I mean, still, what these officials on the ground have said is that the air is 55% cleaner than it was before. That's a pretty big deal.
Couldn't they just plant some trees?
I mean, yeah, but then it wouldn't be featured on Techtasm.
That is very true. So let's break this down a little bit. So you said 30 million cubic meters, which is the size of 10 Beijing national stadiums. So if I took the air in the Beijing National Stadium, whatever that is, and stacked it up 10 times on top of each other,
yep.
In terms of the amount of air in Beijing, you get a little blip on the surface, which could be a bit cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, but no, okay, it's very easy to be cynical, but it's only been going for 41 days and there is only one of them. So what this demonstrates is that if you get like a little fleet of these, if that's the right term for the grouping of smog-sucking towers, together and then combined, they arm themselves and just wipe out pollution. Boom, done, next. What
is the technology behind it? Does it say?
I watched a little video on it earlier, which doesn't seem to be in this wonderful article, that effectively says it's a little bit like an air purifier that you have in your house. So that doesn't answer the question, but I'm sure we can easily find it out with some expert Google.
So some kind of filtration system.
I think so. That's basically it. But what's really interesting is what they're doing with all the particles is they're turning it into jewelry, of course. Oh. So the kind of leftovers, if you will, from this pollution-sucking tower is going to be turned into 300 special smog-free rings.
Well,
nice.
What's interesting, I suppose, is that with these filtration systems, that they usually involve some kind of filter which has to be cleaned or washed at some point. And as you say, it's taking particles out of the air, however small, they're being trapped somewhere and they're going to be deposited somewhere, which means that this device, brilliant though it is and inspiring as though it is going to require constant maintenance to get the arguably tiny amounts of pollution that it's cleaned out of the air out of it again. So either they've got to send somebody in there, with a hammer and chisel to chip it off the filter or however it works. But in either case, I mean, it feels like a publicity stunt to me, unless I've completely misunderstood it.
I think it's very easy to look at it like that. I mean, look, let's be realistic. What's more likely going to happen? The pollution naturally drops because people start driving electric cars in China, or some crazy Dutch inventor goes off and makes one of these little devices and has a bit of PR.
Well, it does say right at the bottom of the article that the smog-free tower will continue to tour China and they're going to announce which city the smog-sucking tower will venture to next. So it implies to me that it's going on a bit of a tour to raise awareness.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, it sounds like the kind of thing that should be in production. So I look forward to seeing this. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, but this needs to be real. I mean, because isn't there some terrible statistic that 50,000 people die every year in the UK through diesel fume-related illnesses?
Stop buying diesels, everyone. If you've got one, sell it. If you're thinking of buying it, don't. There's no need to for fuel economy. Buy a petrol car, or please buy an electric car. Just do it.
So I'm going to say that this is definitely not a Techtasm. It's amazing. I want one. Well, I don't want one personally, but
I think in the strict sense of the word, tech for technology, this looks like a Techtasm. I don't believe that this thing is as sustainable in terms of the amount of maintenance it needs. And I don't think it's nearly efficient enough to get through the kind of atmosphere that would need to be scrubbed by a system like this to make a dent in Beijing's air quality. So I would call this one a Techtasm. So I think we're split, James.
Okay. Well, look, before this gets a bit heated, can we move on, please? To
like the air in Beijing.
Yes. Moving on, Joe Rossignol at Mac Rumors has written a really interesting article about how the United States Department of Transportation's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, mouthful, has proposed a new guideline to encourage smartphone manufacturers to develop a so-called driver mode. The idea being that the phone will somehow detect that it's in a car moving, and tasks such as text messaging, social media content, viewing images and video not related to driving are all going to be disabled. The reason for this is because they're saying that driver distraction was responsible for 10% of fatal crashes in 2014, 18% of crashes causing injuries, and 16% of all traffic crashes in the US in 2014 just due to driver distraction. So, I mean, what they're saying is there were 385 fatal crashes that involved use of a cell phone. I mean, you know, they clearly need to do something. So they're putting the onus back on the cell phone makers because, hey, it's a lot easier to do that than tell people don't be stupid.
Well, these systems actually work, and it's easy to detect whether the vehicle is moving. I was involved in a work capacity in doing a pilot into this a couple of years ago, and there are two systems. One which uses the onboard GPS and accelerometer in the phone to determine whether you're moving. The signature of a car has a certain the accelerometer signature of a phone inside a car has a certain signature which can be read, and also the speed can be determined very accurately from periodic GPS readings. The other way to do it is to actually have the same sensors inside a little dongle which plugs into the OBD port, which is on most cars less than 15 years old have actually got accessible under the dashboard for power primarily, but to take the power out of the car. So the car, you Bluetooth pair your phone automatically with this dongle, and it will disable your messaging features that way. The reason for doing it that way is that it saves battery. This can really drain your battery if you're constantly determining what speed you're going, what your acceleration and deceleration is, and this can be a bit of a faff.
Yeah, I can see that, but look, the thing that makes me think twice about this is, I suppose if you're determined to play with your phone while you're driving, you're going to do it anyway, right? This isn't going to stop you. If it makes it a little bit more awkward, people will still figure it out.
Well, I think that it's in degrees, isn't it? You're absolutely right. There's always going to be a hardcore. So in the UK, where, of course, driving while talking on your cell phone is banned, people in white vans obviously didn't get the memo because nobody in a white van cares about that law. It just isn't enforced. But what it has done is made people who listen think. So this is all about, this is a vaccination program. This is about getting to as many people as possible. And I think mandating it. They're talking about changing the law or something to mandate phone manufacturers.
They're not. I don't think they're saying they're changing the law as such. They're just making a recommendation. A federal guideline. Is a federal guideline a law? I don't know.
I don't know. Guideline sounds like a guideline, doesn't it? Well, it's very nice. Yes. I think the practical problem with this is the amount of battery that is drained when you enable this system. In the trials that I did admittedly a couple of years ago, the phone-based system was not liked because it killed your battery during the day. If you were driving a lot during the day, the act of just sensing this stuff killed your battery. But they both systems work and they save lives.
Well, okay. Well, good stuff. Let's move on.
Well, guess what, James? Kat Distasio in Habitat reported something really exciting this week, which I'm very excited about. New Concorde.
Is this Concorde 2.0?
It's new Concorde. It's a new supersonic jet that can fly from London to New York in 3.5 hours. There's a picture rendering of it. It looks like a mini version of Concorde.
When you say rendering, does that mean it doesn't quite exist yet?
Yes, that's correct. Now, there hasn't been a supersonic passenger jet in service for 10 years. But aviation startup Boom Technology has unveiled what it hopes will change that. It's called the XB1 Supersonic Demonstrator, and it will allow you to take the 15-hour flight from Los Angeles to Sydney in 6 hours, 45 minutes.
Wow.
Now, the plane was revealed at an event last Tuesday at the Centennial Airport in Hangar 14 at Centennial Airport in Denver, Colorado. And they are suggesting that it will take to the air sometime in late 2017. At the moment, they've got a one-third size demonstrator. Now, it's designed to carry 44 passengers, which is obviously less than half what Concorde was taking. But the company is planning to have it in operation by 2020. So not a long way into the future.
Well, hang on, but okay. I'm just going to say, I mean, thinking back to the Airbus A380, that was flying in trials many, many years before it was actually unveiled. Not unveiled, until it was released. So we've only got 3 and a bit years.
Yeah. So I think maybe Boom Technologies perhaps hasn't built a plane before, or has a very overinflated view of their own capability. But sort of in this Kickstarter Indiegogo generation, we expect things to appear in a reasonable timescale. So I think Concorde itself was on the drawing board for 20 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, fair play to them. Really exciting. Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Well, it's an interesting market that they're going into, 44 passengers. Now, it is long distance, so it will go a long way. But carrying such a small number of people, it's an execujet, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, and look, I can definitely see the market for that. There's I know you're not a fan of the whole jumping on a plane to go to a meeting or whatever, but there's definitely a market for that, without a doubt.
Yeah, so in order to fly, just very quickly to go into this, in order to fly fly fast, you need to go high where the air is thinner. This means that Concorde typically flew at twice the height of a regular commercial airliner, which meant, of course, it needed a lot more fuel to get up higher, and then a lot more fuel to sustain that speed. And the problem I've got with that is inefficient. If you're flying somewhere short haul, you should go turboprop, which flies at low altitude and uses very efficient engines and propellers to get you where you want to go at a lower carbon footprint than flying at 70,000 feet at Mach 2 or whatever this plane flies at. So I'm anti it personally in terms of dumping unburnt hydrocarbons right into the stratosphere, which is a really bad thing to do. But if they think they persuade enough investors that they can do it in 3 or 4 years, they will and get the funding. Then it's inevitable, I think, that supersonic transport will come back again, because it found its niche, didn't it, at the end of its life?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and actually reading the article, it said it's going to be $5,000 for a ticket, which, if you compare it to, say, a full price ticket on British Airways first class, full price is £7,000. So what's that? $8,000 now, $9,000. So I suppose it is actually quite competitive if you're looking at that market, and I certainly know there are some industries and some executives who will gladly pay that for normal tickets. So
yeah, well, we very rarely do planes on this show, and it's carbon composite materials, of course, so it's very light. So maybe there's been an advance in material science into Concorde, which will make this a goer, but I'm going to call it after you.
I think this is real. This is not a Techtasm.
Okay, I think this is a Techtasm, and we'll never see it. Well, back down to earth, Intel apparently is backing away from wearables. Did you know this, James?
No, I didn't know this. Interesting stuff.
Well, Intel bought Basis back in 2014, and there were hopes that this acquisition would push wearables to the next level. But sadly, things did not go that way. Now, looking at Engadget, Sean Buckley reports that TechCrunch said that Intel's wearable division is facing massive layoffs. Now, according to TechCrunch, sources close to the company, which is code for somebody that works there, say that Intel is planning to back away from wearables and will soon lay off its staff in its new devices group. Now, have you seen the Basis peak or the Basis?
Honestly, I'd never seen that watch before in my life. I'm looking at the article now and I'm thinking, have you seen this before?
Well, I've heard of the Basis peak. It was considered to be very good right at the top, and certainly the Intel's acquisition of them, a lot of industry watchers thought that it was heralding massive investment in this area. And certainly, everybody was into wearables in 2014, 13. We were all interested in it. I was interested in it. I know you were interested in it. Mm. But subsequent to that, actually, on the 20th of November, which is 4 days ago, Intel issued a statement saying that Intel is in no way stepping back from the wearables business. In fact, we have several products in the works that we're very excited about, as well as prior launches that highlight our wearable technology, such as the Tag Heuer connected watch and recently Oakley Radar Pace smart eyewear. So that's a denial if ever I saw one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, they bought Recon Instruments a couple of years ago. Is that what powers the Oakley?
Oakley. That's the Recon Jet, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
but I wonder if it's Recon who are behind the Oakley.
Oh, could be. Yeah, white labelled. Yeah, could well be actually.
Radar Pace.
We just haven't got enough information.
Yeah, look, I'm a firm believer in wearables, as you know. I don't see the consumer market completely. I'm more of an enterprisey kind of guy. That's definitely a phrase. So, I don't know. I think the jury's out. I mean, Apple keep on rumoured that the watch isn't quite doing as well as they would have hoped. So, who knows?
Yeah, Recon is an Intel company.
Yes, yeah. So I'm wondering if it was Recon behind the.
Yeah, it's got to be. It looks Recon make glasses. Oakley is the same product. Yeah, Oakley is obviously the brand they've made together with them.
I don't know. I think the jury's out for me on consumers and wearables, and Engadget is primarily a consumer-focused company, news outlet. I think enterprise is definitely here to stay for wearables.
Yeah, agreed. So Intel pulling out. They've issued a denial, so there's no Techtasm here, is it? They're still in it.
No. Okay, well, let's move on to something super exciting. Well, super exciting for me.
Exciting.
I'm super excited, can't you tell?
Normally it's the comedy article at the end.
Yeah, but this is not. This could be comedy, but it really isn't. That makes it weird.
Now I'm intrigued.
The Linux Foundation, Microsoft have joined the Linux Foundation. Stop the press.
Wow. Never thought I'd see that.
I know. Microsoft last week at their Connect conference, or was it the week before? I'm not too sure. They announced that they've joined the Linux Foundation as a platinum member, which means that they pay $500,000 a year to the Linux Foundation to encourage collaboration and development and so forth. Interestingly enough, Google
can't get any weirder than that.
Well, there's two things really with Google. Number one, Google's not even a platinum member of the Linux Foundation. Wow, I can't believe that, considering they have their own. Well, they have several Linux operating systems. Number two, though, the other way, Google have joined Microsoft's .NET Foundation.
What?
What is going on here?
The world's gone crazy.
It has gone crazy. Was it Steve Ballmer that said that Linux was just a blip that wasn't really going to go anywhere? Or
Yeah, well, he was certifiable, wasn't he? I mean, he still is. He's not died or anything. I mean, I think he owns a baseball team or a football team. Or something.
He does. He does. Well, I don't know. I mean, but still, I mean, what an absolutely incredible week for software development. You know, you've got the biggest software company in the world openly supporting an operating system that's not their own. And I think the reason for this, and we've discussed this in the past, is Microsoft is becoming more and more of a cloud company where the platform itself is not really their choice. It's the developer's choice. It's the customer's choice. So with Microsoft supporting the Linux Foundation, they can now start making money from Linux, which they do anyway, but you know, they can now start making a bit more money from it.
Well, I think a lot of this is trickled down from Satya Nadella's leadership, where he said, categorically, we're going to chase the users. If the users are somewhere else, then that's where our apps are going to go. So, in a way, I'm surprised, but I'm kind of not surprised.
Well, it follows. If you remember, a couple of months.
What does it mean in practical terms, though, James?
Well, in practical terms, what it means is that Microsoft is committed to making Linux a first-class citizen for its own platform. So Microsoft releases now several developer tools for Linux. There's a version of Visual Studio for Linux, believe it or not. ASP.NET runs on Linux now, so you can run entire Microsoft web services on Linux. As you say, they're chasing the user, the developers. But interestingly enough, one of their biggest products, SQL Server for Linux, SQL Server is on Linux. We spoke about that a while ago. Yeah. The reason for that is, of course, Oracle. Oracle have pretty much got the database market sewn up on Linux operating systems. And Microsoft.
Well, are you sure about that?
Well, they're one of the biggest players. Okay. I mean, who else is there? You got MySQL.
That's Oracle.
So, well,
yes, okay.
Is MySQL Oracle?
They've got it sewn up. Sorry.
Is MySQL Oracle?
It is.
I did not know that.
Well, there you go.
Wow. Okay. So you know, Microsoft now, by having SQL Server for Linux, is chasing Oracle. So. You know, and what Peter Bright here says in Ars Technica, my favorite website, that SQL Server on Linux is actually somewhat cheaper than Oracle. So that's going to be
well, SQL Server is beloved by database administrators because it takes a lot of the pain out of database administration.
And that's really useful. I mean,
Oracle. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say Oracle. So I'm told, is considered to be the Ferrari. You know, the TVR of databases. Once you've got it tuned, it's amazing, but it requires super skill to get it running perfectly. Whereas SQL Server is more your Skoda. You know, you turn up, put the key in, and it works first time every time. But it isn't going to get you where you need to go at the speed of a Lamborghini.
But interestingly enough, I'm sure you're familiar with Stack Overflow, which is every developer's favorite webpage. That effectively any developer, if they're confused about something, go to Stack Overflow and the answer is there. Stack Overflow runs on SQL Server.
Oh, right.
Which is incredible because most big data-heavy websites, you know, for example, Pinterest runs on Redis. You know, because there are all these super fast databases out there for very specific purposes. I was amazed when I heard that Stack Overflow runs on SQL Server. That is absolute. So you know, we mock SQL Server. Certainly, you and I have in the past for just not being able to cope with various things. But actually, I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore.
I think relational databases generally have a technical constraint. They're going to run out of horsepower at some point because of the way they work. They kind of, you know, they came into being in a former age where memory, CPU were constrained. And that you had to make efficient use through normalization. These days, where you just don't care, NoSQL databases seem to be triumphing.
Yeah,
and
I would have agreed with you, but I spent a lot of time with SQL Server recently in my day job, and Microsoft have a product called Azure SQL Data Warehouse that has no limits on storage, none whatsoever.
Yes, I think it's speed of access. You just can't, if you're processing terabytes of information, you just can't do it fast enough on a relational database. It's an architectural constraint, is my understanding.
Yeah, and I think the world is changing slowly on that. Look, NoSQL is clearly great, but let's get back to the story. What we're seeing, though, from Microsoft is a more open Microsoft. And there's a few other things that came out as well from this Connect thing as well. Samsung have announced that they've ported .NET Framework to Tizen. So you can write Tizen applications in C#, Microsoft's programming language, of Visual Studio. So with
4 users who've got a Tizen device can use it.
Well, actually, okay, you laugh, but Samsung TVs are all running Tizen.
Exactly.
So that's
Tizen has become, through its transformation from whatever it was, MeeGo to, it's got a long and illustrious history. Tizen has become Samsung's proprietary operating system that nobody's interested in.
Yes, absolutely. But Samsung do sell a lot of TVs.
Yeah, so, true. And LG, of course, bought WebOS off HP, which was Palm OS before that, specifically to run on their TVs.
Absolutely. And but I think Microsoft now are kind of at a point though where if you're a software developer that knows C#, you can now write applications for servers, for phones, and phones includes iPhones, Androids, Windows phones. You can now write for Tizen. You can write Mac applications as well. You can write Xbox applications. You can write. You can even write PlayStation games in C# now.
Such a fanboy.
No, but you name another company that can do that in your face. Look at that.
I can't. You're just better than me.
It's been a really interesting week. Microsoft are really opening themselves up, and this is definitely the new CEO talking. I think Google's playing catch up possibly by joining the .NET Foundation. But it's...
Well, Google, of course, has got its own long list of languages that it's developed, like Go, and then abandoned. It hasn't abandoned it. It's still there. They keep coming back to Python, and I imagine they'll dabble with .NET. .NET has become, through its open sourcing, anyone's game. And I think, if developers prefer .NET, then great, in C#, and then that's fine. And I think generally... pretty much all of the companies are quite agnostic about programming languages and environments. So I'm not surprised to see this happen. My only word of caution is it a stunt? And I suppose that goes to the heart of the Techtasm. Is this a stunt to get a headline? To what extent is the commitment there to not only join the Linux Foundation, but to enhance Linux as an operating system for the future? And then the ultimate step.
Too interested in enhancing Linux. I mean, they have been one of the major contributors to Linux, interestingly enough, over the past few years. But that's generally around virtualization for their cloud computing platforms, which makes sense.
But Linux is how you get off the proprietary nature of Windows. Windows is a proprietary operating system. And as IT becomes more and more of a commodity business, you want choice. You want to be able to get off. You want to be able to port your skills to different target environments. So I'm all for this. And all for being able to run anything on any platform, which of course was the original objective of Java. And look what happened there when Oracle acquired it.
Well, I think Java was doomed before Oracle had their fingers in it, but they certainly didn't help. But I don't know, is there a Techtasm here?
No, but it's a great story to end on. Would you Adam and Eve it? That's all there is for this week, Governor. Now you can find us at facebook.com/Techtasm, subscribe in your favourite podcatcher, or contact us at feedback@techtasm.com. We record randomly every week or so, so look out for next month's episode. This is me, Sir Robin Yellow.
And me, Mr. James Woodall.
Asking the question on your behalf. Is it real, or is it just a Techtasm?